"I'm going to touch his hat. Watch me go viral." Those words quickly transformed from a tourist's social media aspiration into a serious confrontation with military discipline. In the next few minutes, you'll witness the precise moment this prankster's expression changed as he learned a powerful lesson. The guard's unflinching stance represents something far more significant than a photo opportunity. What happened next left onlookers stunned and created quite a different kind of viral moment than intended. The internet's reaction wasn't what he expected either. Instead of fame, he faced widespread criticism for disrespecting a tradition that dates back centuries and carries profound meaning. If you respect the discipline of the Queen's Guard and love stories like this, tap that like button and subscribe for more tales from behind the bearskin hat. We've got plenty more where this came from. The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace grounds as a young man in his mid-20s made his way through the crowd of tourists. Unlike the others who clutched guidebooks and gazed in wonder at the historic architecture, this visitor had only one focus: his phone, already recording and pointed directly at his own face. His name was Jake, though his online followers knew him as PrankMaster. Today he was hunting for something bigger than the usual fare that populated his social media accounts. "This is going to be epic," he whispered to his phone as he navigated through clusters of respectful visitors. His eyes darted across the courtyard, scanning for his target. When he spotted the red uniform and towering bearskin hat of the Queen's Guard, his expression shifted into a grin that spoke volumes about his intentions. Jake had built a modest following through bold pranks, disrupting museum tours, staging impromptu dance parties in libraries, each escalation rewarded with more views and comments. But engagement had plateaued recently, and Jake knew the algorithm's hunger for novelty was insatiable. "Over there," said one of his 3 friends who formed his makeshift camera crew, "that one hasn't moved for like 20 minutes. The guard stood perfectly still at his post, a human monument to centuries of military tradition. His eyes stared forward, seeing everything and acknowledging nothing. His rigid posture, like marble sculpted into uniform, represented duty that existed without need for an audience. "You think they're even allowed to blink?" Jake snickered to his phone. "Let's find out." Other tourists maintained a respectful distance, taking photos from afar or posing several feet away. The reverent atmosphere around the guard contrasted sharply with Jake's bouncing energy as he sized up the soldier as nothing more than a potential prop for his content. "Dude, do it," encouraged one of his friends, loud enough that several nearby visitors turned with disapproving glances. "This is going to get so many views." Jake adjusted his baseball cap and performed his signature facial expressions for the camera. As he approached the guard, his walk transformed into an exaggerated swagger, each movement designed for maximum impact in the final edit. "Watch this," he said to both his phone and his friends. "These guys can't do anything. It's literally their job to just stand there." The guard's silence wasn't weakness, but extraordinary discipline. His stillness the physical manifestation of centuries of protocol, not an invitation. Jake drew closer, invading the invisible bubble of space that most visitors instinctively respected. In his mind, he mapped out his plan: provoke a reaction, capture it on video, break through to viral fame. What Jake couldn't see was the subtle communication happening between other guards positioned around the palace grounds. While he plotted his escalation, security personnel were already monitoring the situation, recognizing the familiar pattern of a tourist about to cross the line. The invisible boundary between respectful tourism and offensive behavior isn't marked by signs or ropes. It's written in common decency that Jake was about to violate. His first interaction with the guard seemed minor. A casual wave of his hand inches from the soldier's face, an intrusion most wouldn't dare attempt. While security personnel exchanged subtle glances across the palace grounds, Jake stepped deliberately closer to the guard, crossing the recommended distance that most visitors instinctively observed. "Hey guys, watch this," he whispered to his camera, his voice carrying just enough for nearby visitors to turn their heads. The morning light caught his face as he grinned, revealing the calculated nature of what appeared, at first glance, to be a spontaneous gesture. Jake waved his hand slowly in front of the guard's impassive face, the motion deliberate and provocative. The guard's eyes remained fixed forward, his posture rigid as stone. This steadfast composure represented years of military discipline, every muscle controlled, his breathing steady despite the clear provocation inches from his face. Around them, a small crowd gathered like witnesses to an accident they couldn't look away from. A middle-aged woman clutched her purse tighter, shaking her head and ushering her children away. An elderly man with a veteran's pin visibly stiffened, jaw clenched in silent outrage. Two teenage girls retreated several steps, exchanging uncomfortable glances. The invisible line separating respect from transgression had been crossed, leaving a frost of tension in the air. "He's not even blinking," Jake narrated enthusiastically to his camera, misreading the guard's discipline entirely. "These guys just stand here all day doing nothing." The palace security cameras swiveled slightly, capturing every moment from multiple angles. The footage would later reveal Jake's growing confidence as he interpreted the guard's restraint as weakness rather than the warning it truly represented. Military protocols dictate that guards ignore minor provocations precisely like this one. This training stems from the necessity of maintaining order and preventing unnecessary escalation. A tour guide nearby caught the eye of a security officer positioned at the corner of the building, both acknowledging the situation with subtle nods. The crowd's discomfort created a bubble of tension around Jake and his unwilling participant. "See? They can't do anything. They just have to stand there and take it," Jake said louder now, his commentary directed both at his online audience and the onlookers. His voice carried an edge of triumph, as if he'd discovered a loophole rather than testing a professional's restraint. What Jake couldn't see was how this moment represented the first in his three-part escalation, a pattern familiar to security personnel. This initial wave, met with silence, was building Jake's confidence for more aggressive actions to come. Jake had mistaken military bearing for passivity and professional restraint for permission. That disciplined silence was not surrender, but strategy, a centuries-old protocol designed specifically for individuals like Jake. Behind that stoic facade stood a soldier who had endured months of specialized training to maintain composure in the face of far greater pressures than a tourist's juvenile provocations. Emboldened by the guard's apparent impassivity, Jake edged closer, his voice rising with theatrical confidence. "Can you hear me in there? Hello? Anybody home?" he called out, his tone dripping with mockery. The palace courtyard, typically a place of hushed reverence, now echoed with his amplified taunts. "Are your batteries running low? Blink twice if you need charging." Security cameras positioned throughout the royal grounds captured a subtle transformation in the guard's eyes, a micro-expression so fleeting most observers would miss it entirely. It signaled a focused awareness that an invisible threshold had been crossed, recognizable only to trained personnel. Jake's first provocation began with mockery. "Hey, tin soldier, is your hat real fur? PETA would like a word." His voice boomed across the courtyard, causing nearby children to flinch and an elderly couple to exchange glances of disapproval before moving away. A woman in a blue coat shook her head and stepped backward with her companion. Like an unyielding fortress withstanding a storm, the guard's eyes remained fixed forward, his breathing measured despite Jake's face now hovering just feet away. The Queen's Guard training specifically addresses such verbal provocations, considering them the second most frequent form of tourist misconduct. Trainees endure simulated environments with increasingly aggressive verbal stimuli while maintaining perfect stillness. Jake's second escalation involved physical comedy. "I bet I could make you laugh. Watch this." He performed an exaggerated dance with ridiculous facial contortions, his volume drawing attention from tourists across the courtyard. The atmosphere shifted from respectful tourism to uncomfortable spectacle. Meanwhile, plainclothes security personnel converged on his position from multiple angles, their casual repositioning reflecting years of experience with this type of behavior. They recognized the pattern: test boundaries, escalate verbally, then attempt physical contact. "Maybe he's deaf," Jake announced, turning briefly to address his camera. His third and most intrusive provocation began. "Let's see if he can read lips." He exaggerated his mouth movements while slowly enunciating nonsensical phrases. Though the guard's posture remained unchanged, security personnel noted the almost imperceptible tightening around his jaw. "One more try, then I'm going for the big finale," Jake announced, his voice carrying an ominous foreshadowing. His final verbal salvo, shouting directly into the guard's ear about whether the Queen actually liked him, failed to produce the reaction he sought. Despite the increasing volume and proximity of Jake's taunts, the guard maintained his professional bearing, demonstrating remarkable restraint. Frustrated by the guard's unshakable composure, Jake made a decision that would transform him from nuisance to security threat in the blink of an eye. That bearskin hat, standing nearly 2 feet tall and symbolizing centuries of military tradition, was about to become the target of Jake's foolish disrespect. The invisible line between annoying tourist and genuine threat exists for a reason, though Jake couldn't see it through his tunnel vision for viral fame. After exhausting his verbal arsenal and finding his ego still unsatisfied, Jake reached for what security experts call the nuclear option: physical contact with the ceremonial uniform. His eyes darted between his camera and his target, ensuring his followers would capture every moment of his presumed triumph. Eyewitnesses would later describe the moment with a collective intake of breath. Jake's right hand rose slowly toward the towering bearskin hat, his fingers extending with the casual entitlement of someone who had never faced real consequences for crossing boundaries. The smartphone in his left hand remained steady, recording what he imagined would be his path to social media stardom. The bearskin hat stands as deeply symbolic, unyielding as the iron of ancient monuments. Each represents a distinct regiment with its own battle honors and history. To the informed observer, touching this revered part of the uniform violates centuries of strict protocols, a fact Jake remained blissfully ignorant of as his fingers inched closer. A momentary flicker crossed the guard's face, not fear or anger, but recognition. Recognition of a familiar pattern where passive observation must instantly switch to active defense. The guard's eyes shifted, fixing directly on Jake with laser-like intensity. This was the point of no return. Time seemed to stretch as Jake's fingers came within inches of the ceremonial hat. Surrounding tourists instinctively stepped back, their bodies recognizing danger before their minds processed it. Jake remained oblivious to the atmospheric shift, his focus solely on creating content at any cost. In that suspended moment, Jake's internal dialogue raced with anticipation of likes and shares. His confidence swelled, unaware that he had just crossed from nuisance into threat territory. Then, the response. In a blink, the guard stomped forward, slammed his foot, and shouted, loud enough to freeze the entire crowd. The transformation was instantaneous. Where a statue had stood moments before, now stood an active-duty soldier responding with military precision. The thunderous stomp reverberated across the courtyard, silencing every conversation. Jake's hand froze mid-air. The guard had pivoted sharply toward him, boot planted firmly, rifle shifting position with practiced efficiency. The smirk that had seemed permanently etched on Jake's face evaporated, replaced by wide-eyed shock. His phone captured his own transformation from confident prankster to stunned tourist as realization crashed down. In that moment, Jake understood. The Queen's Guard may stand motionless for hours, but they are never passive. That motionless figure Jake had been tormenting wasn't just a man in a funny hat. He was the physical embodiment of a security system with roots stretching back hundreds of years. And now, that system was responding exactly as designed. The Queen's Guard's training activated instantly. Years of specialized training transformed ceremonial stillness into authoritative action as the statue-like figure became a commanding military presence. His demeanor shifted completely, moving from ceremonial duty to security response. The sudden movement caught Jake completely off guard. The soldier's boots slammed against the ground with such force that nearby tourists visibly flinched. The sound cut through the air like a thunderclap, creating immediate silence around the scene. Jake stumbled backward, nearly dropping his phone, which continued recording his own public humiliation rather than someone else's. "Stand back from the Queen's Guard!" The command exploded across the courtyard with military precision and authority. This phrase, uttered with the weight of centuries behind it, was designed to establish immediate control while alerting nearby security personnel. The guard's voice projected royal authority, demanding immediate compliance. The guard's face transformed completely. His blank expression vanished, replaced by focused intensity. His eyes locked onto Jake with laser-like precision. One witness later compared it to watching someone step out of a painting into real life. Centuries of military tradition suddenly animated and focused on a single foolish tourist. Jake's friends' laughter evaporated. Their expressions shifted from encouragement to horror as they grasped the situation's severity. Their phones now documented the swift consequences of disrespecting a royal institution. Security personnel materialized from multiple directions with practiced efficiency. 3 plainclothes officers converged on Jake within seconds, moving with coordinated purpose. The Queen's Guard never operates alone. They're the visible component of a comprehensive security apparatus that monitors and responds to threats from multiple angles. Jake's face cycled through emotions: shock, confusion, embarrassment. His phone captured the realization of his miscalculation. The viral moment was taking shape, but as a cautionary tale, not the triumphant prank he'd imagined. Before Jake could formulate an excuse, 2 security officers gripped his arms while a third explained his security violation. They guided him away with efficient, non-negotiable movements. Jake's protests fell on deaf ears as the officers explained that attempting to touch a guard's uniform represented a potential security threat requiring immediate removal from the premises. His grand performance had lasted less than 5 minutes. The consequences would follow him much longer. When the video hit the internet, it exploded, not with the laughter or admiration the tourist had hoped for, but with collective disapproval. Comment sections filled with people defending the guard and condemning the disrespectful behavior. The online community found rare unity in their criticism. This digital response transformed a thoughtless prank into a statement about respecting cultural institutions. What happens when viral fame-seeking collides with centuries-old traditions? The incident catalyzed meaningful discussions about responsible tourism in our content-driven era. The tourist eventually released an apology video, his humbled expression a stark contrast to his earlier cockiness. A powerful reminder that respect transcends clicks.